Hey, it's Vass here from Aussie RC Playground and welcome to another unboxing of yet another monster truck. This one comes to me from Hobao and it is the Hyper MTe Sport Plus. This is a 1/8 scale, 4-wheel drive, brushless monster truck. Now, if you guys have been following the channel for a while, you probably remember a while ago I unboxed and reviewed the Ofna Hyper MTe, which was the predecessor to this particular truck here. This is the updated version. Now, that Ofna truck didn't have the best of reviews. It did have a few issues with it, namely the bent chassis, the wobble in the wheels, and also it had a horrendous turning circle as well. Judging by the feedback that I've had so far from people that already own this truck, this is a much better and improved model. Hobao have actually done a few changes to it, and I'm very curious to see how it performs. Now, without further ado, let's get rid of the box because we don't need that here, and let's have a look at what we actually get in the box with this one. There is the truck here. Now the truck does come in two colors, comes in this beautiful blue and red color scheme. There's also I think what they're calling a granite color scheme, which is like a dark gunmetal gray sort of color. This is the one that I got. And of course, in the box, you get the truck, you get the remote, and you get a bunch of goodies. Now, first thing in my hand here is a program card. This is something that is very, very cool to see in a ready to run, because it allows you to very easily program your ESC should you need to or want to, without having to listen to beeps and press buttons for a certain amount of time and everything else. So very, very cool to see that in a ready to run. Other companies take note, because I think Hobao have done something very good here. This is the little cable that you'll need to connect the program card to your ESC. So you'll need that. Antenna tube, which is quite long, don't know why, but there it is there. Now they've supplied something in the box here which I'm a little bit puzzled by, and it's these little plastic pieces. Now, on the old Ofna truck, it had a very unique sort of body design. Some people liked it, some people didn't. I actually didn't mind it. I like the fact that it was different from your traditional monster truck body. And on the back of it, like on the tray, it had these plastic pieces that you could put like numbers on it if you wanted to. And that's what these things were for. Now, when I seen these in the packet, I thought, oh, cool. So they've given me some updated ones that would actually fit on the back of this truck, and I'll just have to drill out the holes and mount them on if I want to. If they're not already marked or drilled. Turns out these actually belong to the old truck. So I'm not quite sure why they've included these in here, considering that they don't actually fit on this body. So that's a little bit puzzling. The other thing you get in here is a little bit of a tool kit or a little tools bag. I'll see if I can get my camera to focus in on these so you can see them properly. So you get a little triangular wrench here, some Allen keys. Pretty cool stuff, not bad. Don't give you 17mm hex wrench though for your wheel nuts, and the wheel nuts on this are actually really cool. I'll talk to you about those in a minute. There is also an instruction booklet for your radio, which is that guy there. There is a little warning leaflet. Now this is referring to the steering servo on the truck. Now the old Ofna truck had a Savox steering servo, which I think could work on high voltage. I'm not 100% sure. I think it may have just been a low voltage one. But anyway, they've included this little leaflet just to warn you that the servo that's included in the truck only works on 6 volts. So before you go programming your ESC and putting it on a high voltage setting for your servo, just be careful because the servo only works on 6 volts. There's the instruction manual for your ESC, so you know exactly what you're doing. They've also included the remnants of the stickers, so they've put some stickers already on the truck. This is what's left over from that sticker sheet, and you can put them on if you want to or not, up to you. And last but not least, I'll just put the plastic over there, is the user manual. Now this is a very nice user manual, very well illustrated, lots and lots of part numbers and bits and pieces that you can look at, and you know, if you need to order anything. Blown up pictures of the truck and lots of useful information. Now this does cover the nitro version as well, so you'll see bits in here that don't really correspond with this truck because it's of course for the nitro version. Make sure you always hold on to your user manual. I've got a massive box full of them for all my cars. The remote, let's move on to this guy. This is actually a really cool remote. I really like this remote. There is one downside about this remote though, and that is that it runs on 8 AA's. Not a fan of that. I wish that it was only a 4 AA remote. Look, it's not a big deal, but given the industry's kind of moved away from 8AAs quite a number of years ago, to see in 2016 a brand new truck still running 8AAs on the remote, it's a little bit disappointing considering the standards have been raised up a little bit. So aside from that, really cool remote, comfortable feel in the hand, steering dual rates, nice feel to the wheel as well. You've got steering trim, throttle trim as per standard. There's also, I believe, steering and throttle dual rates on this one, which is really nice to see. Bind button, and that's pretty much it. You've got an auxiliary switch up the top here, which I'm not entirely sure what it does. Could be more specific to the Nitro version. Don't quote me on that. All right, we'll pop that guy aside and let's have a look at the truck. I'll bring it up to the camera as per usual so you can have a bit of a look at it. Now, I will say this truck is actually a little bit heavy than I anticipated. It's deceptively heavy, actually. One cool thing, I'll just show you this here while we're looking at the bumper. On the old Ofna truck, these little fake headlights that they've got here, they were actually kind of glued onto the bumper. What they've done here is they've actually screwed them on from the back. So the bumper is slightly different from the old one, and these are kind of screened from the back, because the old one, I actually had these headlights fall off because they were just kind of like glued on there. And yeah, nice to see they've improved that as well. Moving on, let's hope the camera can still focus on this as I spin it around. No wheelie bar is included, and you will see here that the back of the body is actually cut out. That's to kind of give you a little bit of a handle to pick up the truck, because there is a plastic roll cage inside. Overall, very nice looking truck. I absolutely love the color of it. It's a really nice deep metallic blue, and then highlighted with the red and the black. Looks fantastic. Really like that. I may actually paint up a body similar to this in the future, because I really like the way they've done this one. All right, now the body itself, again, pretty standard run-of-the-mill kind of ready-to-run body. Does feel a little bit thin though, I will say. Does have a little bit of extra strength on the top, but then again, you do have the roll cage to add a little bit of a protection on there as well. Hopefully it holds up to a bit of punishment. Worst case scenario, well, I'll be grabbing another one, maybe something from Proline or something like that, to kind of change the look of it as we go. Here is the truck itself, and of course, if you have seen that Ofna review and unboxing that I did with the Hyper MTe, this one is no different. There is the chassis there. Now this kind of runs what I know a lot of people will call a twin vertical plate chassis, but it kind of is and isn't. What they've done is they've got a flat piece of aluminium and they've kind of bent it up 90 degrees, and that's how you get that design. So you don't have two independent plates running parallel to each other. It's just one piece that kind of bends up. That's how this one's done. Okay, electrics. 150 amp ESC, which is a rebranded quick run hobby wing ESC. Hence the program card will probably be very familiar to a lot of you out there. 2000 kV brushless motor. Don't know what brand this motor is. There are no markings on it at all. It's best guess as to who actually makes it. It is running a 16-tooth Mod 1 pinion gear. Now, I remember the Ofna actually had an 18-tooth pinion, so they've actually geared this one down a little bit, and I think I know why. It's because these wheels, or rather the tyres, are actually a bit bigger in diameter compared to the old Ofna. So it might be doing the same speed as the old truck, but because the wheels are bigger, they've geared it down a bit, and that basically keeps the same speed. Now the wheels, I believe, are the same. Don't quote me on it, but they look very similar. I think the wheels might actually be the same. And the wheel nuts, this is an interesting one. If I can bring this guy up close to the camera, and let me see if I can get the camera to focus here. Here we go. So you can see the wheel nut here has actually got another bolt through the middle. Now, I actually ended up with these wheel nuts on my Ofna as well, but originally it just had standard 17mm hex little nut that goes over the top that you see on pretty much every other ready to run. But I ended up getting these wheel nuts because these are actually a really cool thing. You put your wheel nut on the wheel first as per normal, but the nut itself has a hole through it, and then you put your little bolt with a little bit of Loctite on there, and these wheel nuts are never coming off. So a really good design. Does make it a little bit more time consuming to take them off if you want to take your wheels off constantly, but it is a very cool design just so that you don't lose wheel nuts pretty much ever, I think. Now, battery trays on either side, of course, they are you know, you hold your batteries down with some Velcro straps, which is pretty cool. And I actually put my Maxamp 6000 milliamp batteries in here. You remove this little bit of foam, this little block of foam that comes in the battery trays, and those 6000 milliamps actually fit in here like a glove. It's almost as if these trays were made for those batteries or vice versa. So I'll definitely be running those in here when I run my 6S through the truck. So very cool. Always good to have batteries that fit perfectly in your battery trays, and they are one of them. Truck does run Dean's plugs, which I'm not a huge fan of anymore. Dean's on a big powerful 1/8 scale vehicle like this does hinder performance quite a bit because of the resistance that they create. So I will be swapping these out and installing my XT150s. You may want to, you know, swap out for your own type of connectors as well. We have shocks. These are aluminium threaded bodied shocks, and the suspension itself does feel pretty nice. But there is one problem with the suspension, which I was really hoping that they would have addressed from the Ofna version that I had, and that is that the truck does not bottom out. So essentially what's happening is the shocks are just too long, I suppose, and they are not allowing the truck to hit the ground before the shocks bottom out. So you can see that I can put my hand under here and I can't get the chassis to hit the ground. Now this is a bad thing. The reason for that is because when you take a big jump and the truck lands and it lands hard, well, that force, that pressure needs to go somewhere. If you put all of it into the shocks, you could potentially break your shock pistons. You're also going to be putting a lot of pressure onto the bolts on the shock tower that hold the actual shocks in place, and you're also going to be putting a lot of pressure onto the shock tower itself. So it's really not ideal to have this sort of setup. Sure, it'll protect your chassis from getting all scratched up and everything, but in the long run, it could be a bit of a problem. So that's problem number one that I found with this truck, and I really wish that they had addressed that. Maybe in future releases they can have a look at it. But aside from that, the suspension does feel pretty good. Very well dampened, as far as I could tell. To be honest, that's probably the biggest single problem that I can see with this truck. The other problem that I'm a little bit iffy about is that with the first version of the truck that I had, what happened to it was the chassis actually bent on this side. So on the back, it's not a big deal because you have the motor mount that goes right across the chassis, so that strengthens it up quite a bit. But on the front, there's really nothing. It's all hollow under here because of your steering linkage and everything. Now, there is a brace available that you can put across here, which I'll probably end up having to get myself, just as a precaution. But there is a brace that you can put there. And to be honest, that brace should really be included in the truck. Because going by history, going by what happened to me with the other truck, this is a little bit of a concern to me. Now, I have been told, and don't quote me on this, but I have been told that the chassis on this, apparently, or the quality of the aluminium is different from the previous version. So perhaps the aluminium can actually take a bit of a beating and I won't have that problem, and the brace may not be all that needed, albeit it would be nice to have it. But we'll see. I'm going to run the truck at the BMX track just like I did the other one, and I'm going to see if this one has the same issue or not. So that's my other bit of concern. One thing that I'm a little bit disappointed with is that it doesn't come with a wheelie bar. I mean, it's a 1/8 scale monster truck capable of running on 6S. This should come with a wheelie bar. Some of you may not really care about that, but for me personally, given that I've had so many monster trucks recently, and a lot of them actually do come with wheelie bars pre-mounted, it would be nice to have this one included, because you can get it, but of course it's an additional purchase. Now, just like the other one, you've got adjustable body posts, front and rear, really beefed up links. The A-arms are super strong, super beefy, very, very cool design on the A-arms. Links, camber, toe, everything very, very strong, very beefed up. I never had an issue with the plastics on the old Ofna truck, although a couple of these the rod ends on these links did break at one point. But to be fair, that's not really the truck's fault. The truck did take a few fair hits, and if that's the only thing that's going to break as far as plastics go, that's a minor thing. It's not really a big deal, at least for me anyway. But the bumpers and the shock towers and everything else held up perfectly, and that's one thing that I really liked about that other Ofna. Now, one thing that they have improved on this truck is the tires. The tires on this feel very, very nice, really nice pliable rubber. Feel kind of sticky as well. The tread pattern seems to be a lot better than the old one, the old Ofna truck. And the foams actually feel really good as well. So very impressed with the tyres and the combination that they've gone for here. Another thing that's really impressed me about this one is the lack of slop in older wheels. Because the old Ofna had an enormous amount of slop on all these four wheels, and this one they've really toned it down. It still has a little bit of a wobble, but honestly, compared to some of the other RCs that I've had recently, this is nothing outside of the norm. The other one was horrendous. This one, very, very good. Very impressed with the improvement there. Was one of the things that I was really worried about, because it's really hard to get that slop out of there, and they've definitely addressed it. So very, very good to see that. Another thing they've also improved on, this is number 3 that they've made an improvement on, are the drive shafts. They're actually using universal drive shafts on this guy on all 4 corners. The Ofna MTe, that came with dog bones front and rear, if my memory serves me correct, and then I ended up getting the universals later on. So very, very good to see that on this one. Always good to have universal drive shafts. I think I've covered pretty much everything. Front bumper, rear bumper, very strong. Never had an issue with the old one either. It doesn't have a center diff as such. It's got more like a gear transfer case in the middle, which is kind of a hand-me-down from the Nitro version. So it's the same thing is on the Nitro truck. Receiver box is absolutely huge, and that's where your receiver and your steering servo is actually mounted, is inside this receiver box. I do believe that it is waterproof from memory. Is the servo waterproof? Doesn't actually say, but if I find out, I'll put it up on screen. It does have an aluminium servo horn. I'll bring it up close to the camera so you can have a look. So it does have an aluminium servo horn in there, and it does say HB5514MG, MG standing for metal gears. So they do have a decent quality steering servo in here, which is nice to see. Hopefully it's one of those things that you don't have to upgrade it unless you absolutely want to. But as far as the need to, I think this one, or I'm hoping this one doesn't need to be upgraded, if you know what I mean. That's pretty much everything that I think I need to cover on this truck. There is one other thing that I'm a little bit, well, not really disappointed, but you've got 2 kind of mounting holes on the A-arms, and you might be thinking, oh, okay, hang on, let me see if I can get this to focus. So you might be thinking, okay, that means that I can actually mount my shocks a little bit lower. Well, that's not the case. You see, the front and rear A-arms are exactly the same, and you can flip them over. So I can use this A-arm on that side, and I can use this A-arm on the rear, and so on and so forth. Again, very clever design to minimize the number of unique parts that are on an RC. So this is really good to see. Now, when you flip the arm upside down, that's when you use the other hole. So this is not an adjustment point as such for the shock. It's just the other option that you have if you choose to use the arm on the opposite end. That's why that's there. So that's not really an adjustment point for your shock, just so you know. I've noticed as well that they've got aluminium standoffs on the shocks. Very good, because obviously it strengthens the bolt that goes through there. When you have plastic ones, they flex, and usually the bolt snaps off. So when you have aluminium standoffs, that adds a little bit of strength. Nice to see a bit of extra durability there. And I think I've covered pretty much everything I need to cover. Now, the old truck had a lot of speed. I think I clocked it on 6S at about 80 kilometers an hour from memory, which is pretty decent speed for out of the box setup. So I'm curious to see what this one's gonna do. The remote on the Ofna was exactly the same as this one as well. Would have been nice if this one was actually only running on 4 AA's, not 8. But aside from that, I'm pretty impressed with what I see here so far. They've made some improvements. The shocks are really the only thing that really worry me. And of course, the chassis not being braced, we'll see how that goes. But even so, like with the shocks, just going back to that quickly, I never really had a problem with the old shocks. They were exactly the same. The truck didn't bottom out either, and I never broke a shock piston or did anything like that. Because, you know, all that pressure, it kind of, in the long run, I think it may create some problems. But like I said, didn't really have an issue with the old one. Maybe I'm just overthinking this a little bit. So we'll test it out and we'll see what happens. That's pretty much it for this unboxing, guys. Thank you all very much for watching. Please be sure to check out the video description for more information on the truck, as well as a link to my Facebook page. I thank you all very much for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.